we are moving straight into another awesome stock, another awesome company. You guys know them, 22nd Century. They are XXII, and we have Jim Mish, CEO of 22nd Century, here with us. How are you?
Good morning, Elliot. How are you doing? I'm fine.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's a fun day already. We're starting off with, honestly, a fun lineup. You are kind of a change of pace here, though, so I'm very excited to hear what is going on. I think this is your first time, so I think at a Benzinga conference, at least in a while. So I'm going to let you get to it and tell us, our audience, what's going on.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be here. On the phone with me is May Kuo, our IR lead. So when I ask May to change my slides moving forward, you'll know who I'm talking to. But I'm also glad I got a chance to listen into George's presentation as well. Really exciting stuff and tough act to follow. We are not as well the Amazon of cannabis. We are the Intel inside of cannabis is the best way to think of us. And it's my real pleasure to kind of give the audience a sense of who we are, because we do cut across multiple markets, certainly including hemp cannabis, which is one of our primary focuses. So if you could just put up our first slide, I would appreciate it. So at our core, as I said, think of us as the Intel inside of cannabis. We are a disruptive plant-based biotechnology company that happens to focus across really 3 plant lines, all of which are in the alkaloid-based family. They have high levels of efficacious activity across the board. So our first plant franchise was tobacco, and we'll talk more about that, but we have a low nicotine strain of tobacco that has been coming through the works for years and is destined for the harm reduction cigarette market. That's really the foundation of the company. A few years back, however, the company expanded into the hemp cannabis area, also an alkaloid-based plant. And everyone on the call here certainly knows the upside opportunities around hemp cannabis. And also we're starting work and advancing both on a scientific basis, an IP basis, and strategic partnership basis on what we call a third franchise. We haven't named it yet, but we have alluded to the fact that it is an alkaloid-based plant within the cannabis family and serving a high-end use market. The size of the prize for us across these 3 franchises and being able to bring what we think are truly disruptive plant to bear is over $1.3 trillion across these 3 end-use markets. And we cut across things we can serve as pharmaceutical, consumer, even in the cigarette market I'll talk to more about, but very high growth, very exciting opportunities across a diverse platform. We have very deep moat around our IP. Certainly within the tobacco franchise, we own the IP on this low nicotine variant, and we've got additional strains that we're growing as we speak for blending operations into what we call a second generation low nicotine cigarette. But also we have foundational IP in cannabis that we share with Aurora on biosynthetics. We focus that biosynthetic IP primarily within the plant, but also on a pure biosynthetic play, but very deep moat. And we believe that is the keystone of next generation biosynthetic cannabinoids. And we enjoy that strong partnership with Aurora. Our business model typically is to develop the diverse plant strain, bring it to full commercialization, and license that to strategic partners who have the channel to market infrastructure to launch it. And then we are also always looking for the disruptive note in our strains is always based around the consumer experience. We want to make the consumer experience, whether it's recreational, whether it's consumer based across these franchises, the ultimate experience. And we play from a strong financial position, very strong balance sheet, and plenty of cash to move forward with our organic plans across these 3 franchises. Next slide, May, please. So this is just a little bit more detail. I won't go into this in much. This will be on our website, xxiicentury.com. But it just gives a bit more explanation around these 3 franchises, and most importantly, the 3 end-use markets that it serves. High growth, global scale and really ripe for the ability to bring higher quality, truly disruptive plants to bear. Next slide, please. So we have very keen areas of focus. Number one is to bring forward what we call a modified risk tobacco product authorization from the FDA and our tobacco franchise. For those of you who are not familiar with XII, our primary mission is to bring a product forward that would reduce the harm caused by nicotine-based cigarettes. Our cigarette brand in the wings at the moment, VLN, is a low nicotine cigarette that is categorized within the FDA guidelines as minimal or non-addictive in nature. So the flavor profile is very solid. The consumer information is very solid. We have the authorization from FDA by a PMTA to actually sell this product. What we're waiting for, and we believe we're in the final stage, and I'm highly confident of that nature, is the allowance of a marketing claim to say that it is 95% less nicotine. That's the only authorization we're waiting for. As I said, I'm absolutely confident we're in the final stage of that. And once we get that, we're prepared to launch that product within 90 days. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a high level here in a few minutes. Secondarily to that, but as very important for the long term of the company and the consumer health, is around the possibility of a nicotine mandate coming forward in the United States. That nicotine mandate would force ultimately the levels of nicotine in all cigarettes to be minimally or non-addictive, and that is already achieved by our product and by our low nicotine tobacco technology. So we're doing everything we can to support that, not only onshore, but in countries like New Zealand, and a lot of the former British colonies typically follow suit. Australia, Canada, ultimately the US. And that is moving along on the Biden administration agenda very quickly. So we have a very high confidence level that the progress towards a nicotine mandate is in place. These are very catalytic events for us. Certainly the MRTP authorization we view as a home run opportunity to get our brand out there. And the nicotine mandate and even progress towards that over a period of years is really a grand slam for us. But in regards to this conference and more on the hemp cannabis side, we really are progressing very nicely. We have assembled, and I will show you a network of strategic partnerships to be able to bring truly disruptive plant strains from concept to true commercialization within a 2-year time period. And our first focus is to take the first generation of these plants, roughly 3 or 4 of them, and begin monetizing them through licensing agreements and also through a grow that we're currently participating in our farm in Colorado, which we will be harvesting in the late October, early November timeframe. Again, I'll talk more about that in the near future. But we also have a very rich portfolio and development pipeline of additional strains coming through with partnerships that I'll get into on the genetics side, on the plant profiling side, and also on the breeding and cultivation side. We stay on the more or less the ingredients side of the bright line and seek partnerships, strategic partnerships with those who are selling formulated products in a variety of industries, including recreational consumer products, et cetera. But that's one of our third primary focus. The fourth is to further along this third franchise. As I alluded to, we have the IP buttoned up. We have strategic partnerships being lined up. The only thing we have not done is announce the exact franchise. We're reserving that until right after our MRTP authorization, and we'll move on from there. And financially, we're very sound. Next slide, Mike. So in tobacco, as I alluded to, VLN is the brand of cigarettes that we are prepared to launch within 90 days of this MRTP authorization. It's an exciting, disruptive product for the entire marketplace. It will be the first and likely only FDA authorized cigarette that would have a harm reduction claim on it, namely that it is 95% less nicotine, that it allows less exposure to nicotine. We have all of the clinical data that has been run by groups like FDA, like NIH, point to the success factors of reduced harm via the reduced exposure to nicotine. Our own consumer studies show a very strong uptake in this product line, and our entire supply chain, including the grow of the tobacco and manufacture of the cigarettes within our North Carolina facility, is all in place, ready to go. We're simply waiting for the final FDA authorization, which I've said many times publicly, I am absolutely confident in, and it's just a matter of the FDA working through their final stage of their process. So we're very excited about this. This is a catalytic event for the company. Next slide, please. As I said, it's in the final stages of review. They have already authorized us to sell the product, but it would be like putting a product out there, a diet soda, without being able to say the word diet on the can. So it's very important to us, and we have been working very collaboratively with FDA to get this finalized. And as I said before, once this authorization does occur, we will be in market with well-recognized retail channel partners within 90 days. Next slide, May. And next slide, May. This is a little bit more about the manufacturing, but I'll pass through this. As I said, there's a lot of tailwinds for us these days within the federal policy positions. Certainly, the FDA and the new lead of the HHS and the entire Biden administration, from a cancer perspective, are tailwinds and reduced harm from cigarette smoking. That only drives our MRTP faster to the marketplace, but also then reinforces it via a broader nicotine mandate, just like the FDA is moving forward on the menthol mandate. So we'll see, we fully anticipate seeing that coming along within the next few months with regards to a nicotine mandate. And that takes steps. It's a revised rulemaking approach that'll take time to implement, but certainly we do expect it to go strongly in that direction. Next slide. So let's turn our attention to hemp cannabis. So as I said before, one of the solutions that we're trying to bring forward to what we believe is a problem within the entire industry as it expands and grows is the ability to optimize the plant at the genetic level, but through non-GMO based methodology, in order to optimize it to grow in many different ways and modulate in many different ways. Modulate the levels of cannabinoids in total, modulate certain cannabinoids, certain terpenes, certain flavonoids, and most importantly, optimize yield. As the current generation plants are grown and they get larger and larger in scale, the quality becomes an issue. They've never been optimized at the genetic level. We believe with our original IP, the biosynthetic IP, and how we utilize it with our partnerships at KeyGene in particular, we have the ability to bring these disruptive plant strains that are highly advantageous to our strategic partners from a yield and cost basis, but even more so critical to the consumer experience and an increase in the consumer experience from a quality basis as well. So imagine being able to produce artisanal type of recreational marijuana or hemp cannabis, but at the largest scale required as the markets expand in the US and Canada and certainly offshore. That's how we fit into the mix. Next slide, please. So this is our development pipeline. We start with a concept and we really end in a 2-year cycle from concept to full commercialization. We start by working with our strategic partners or understanding the market to determine what a consumer perceived benefit looks like. Do we want higher levels of THC? Do we want the consumer to experience a more impactful recreational experience? Or on the consumer product side, as it expands in the food, beverage, and nutritional supplements, or on the medical OTC side, what is the desired effect? With our exclusive relationship at Canometrics and a human cell assay array that we utilize, very scientific approach, we can profile what that plant should look like. And we can profile even to the point of personalized identification on an individual basis, what that individual may be more receptive to. That's the beauty of Canometrics. It basically gives us a roadmap as far as what the plant strain should look like on an optimum basis. We then work that with our strategic partnership at KeyGene to develop the plant strain at a very small level, seed level and seedling level, clone level. Move that into our breeding partners that we'll be announcing very shortly, that are alkaloid-based specialists in the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. And then bring that through plant cultivation, not only on our own farm in Colorado, but through a network of farms. We're also partnered with a group in Colorado, Panacea, have excellent finished product goods in their own right. We focus our partnership with them in the upstream value chain. But as things are moving along here, we've got the first generation of plants that are moving through this pipeline. In fact, we're growing, amongst other things, a high CBG strain, a very high CBG strain in the Colorado farm. There was one of the first proof of concept plants. And then we've got a wide variety, over 8,000 genomes of strains that we own IP around and partnership with KeyGene to bring through in many different ways. And this is all based on the core biosynthetic IP that we utilize in the plant itself with our partnership with KeyGene. It's unique to the approach versus standard plant breeding. It's unique to the pure biosynthetic approach, or even the synthetic approach. And what it allows for is truly disruptive plants that could create an Intel inside approach within a 2-year period versus 7 to perhaps longer than 10 years in most cases. May, please. So this is part of our monetization, and we've been public with this. Within the second half of this year, sometime in Q3 or Q4, we expect the first revenue and profit streams coming in from licensing revenue on the original IP and the first strains of plants coming out of that. And then on top of that, we have multiple other licensing opportunities that will build off of that as we get into Q4 and into Q1. And also we'll be harvesting our first grow of both CBD and high CBG strain out of Colorado. We've already got offtake commitments for that biomass. We could also supply it then as a distillate or an isolate. That's at the end of our value chain, or at the other component of our business model is to license out that technology in a full dossier. Next slide.
About 2 minutes left here, Jim, if you want to get to some questions or just keep going, up to you.
No, I'd rather turn, that was actually the last slide, so perfect timing, Elliot, and sorry to run a little bit over, but I want to give everyone a good sense. But yeah, let's take some questions. I always like that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, I mean, you are a complete change of pace, and I love what you all are doing. So it seems to me with VLN, might be good to maybe put you on your watch list now, as the FDA clears that up for approval. I do have something that's come up in the chat quite a bit if you could address, and I think I did see this before this event as well, talking about the Monsanto. Are you similar to that, or how would you respond to something like this?
Yeah, we view ourselves as the Monsanto across these particular franchises, these 3 plants only. Monsanto has a very scientific and methodical approach. They go broad across many plants, mostly in the commoditized, soy, corn, etc. But we focus on these 3 plants and these 3 plants only, and we apply their approach. But what's an important distinction, and I hold Monsanto in high regard, but we are driven by a non-GMO approach. We can do either, and in some cases, that technology still exists, but we focus on a non-GMO approach across these 3 plant lines, but come at it from a very scientific basis, just like Monsanto.
Fantastic. I'd love your thoughts. We have about 1 minute left, but something I'm curious, how does the entrance of tobacco into cannabis, like we've seen over the past couple of years with BAT, and I think a couple others are making massive investments into leading companies like Organigram. Mm-hmm. Does that affect you all? Is that positive for you all? I'm curious.
Yeah, it's very synergistic. I mean, again, the combination ultimately of the tobacco industry and the cannabis industry is natural, just a natural evolution. So it doesn't surprise us there. Also, the beverage industry, there's a lot of connecting to the beverage industry. But the synergies between tobacco and cannabis, both on the recreational side and on the consumer side, is very natural. It's very synergistic for us because obviously we cut across both franchises, and we can bring this disruptive technology across both. And in the case of VLN, putting out the brand itself.
Perfect. Jim, it's been a pleasure having you here. Really appreciate you running through this. Looks like good news is on the horizon.
Yeah.
So everybody, NYSE American listed XXII website, xxiicentury.com. Jim, thank you so much again for being here today. And please update us again soon. We look forward to hearing from you guys very soon.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thanks again, Jim.